Welcome to QAV TK episode 911 911.
9/11.
That I don't know, symbolic?
Well,
Is that
how soon after the invasion of Iraq did 9/11 happen?
no, the other way around?
Oh, was
How
it?
soon after?
No, it came first, didn't it? Well, it was in response to
It was the
something. Gulf War One.
9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the result of lots of mucking around in the Middle East.
Mm.
Well, you've kicked off the story. I guess I read this somewhere yesterday. The IEA.org's report, oil market report. This is the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. According to the International Energy Agency, the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran has created the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Fortunately, Trump won the war. I think day one, day two, it's all done. Iran was
It's not a
out
war.
of options. It's not a war.
No, Marco Rubio said it's not a war.
Oh,
Israeli attacked Iran and Iran attacked the US. It's a defense. It's not a war. War needs Congress. So it's not a war.
right.
Mm.
It's like the Korean War wasn't a war. It was a police action.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Police action. And Bill Clinton didn't have sex in the Oval Office because it technically wasn't sex, according to him and his lawyers. Australia currently holds 36 days worth of petrol supply, 29 days worth of jet fuel, and 32 days worth of diesel, according to the latest data, according to the ABC. But that's not going to be a problem.
It did hold 36 days. It just released 20% for the country areas. So we now hold 3 weeks worth of supply.
Right. Well,
which
nothing could go wrong
which is
with
like a third of what we're meant to be holding under international treaties.
Well, we are holding it. Just when it's like that Seinfeld episode about holding the reservation. I don't think you are. I don't think you do understand. Anyone can take a reservation. It's the holding. Yeah, I read somewhere that we're holding it in America. Yeah. We're holding it over there where they have a very stable genius running the country. I'm demanding
but there's a thing called the Pacific Ocean between there and here too.
Iran's nowhere in the Pacific Ocean. I'm demanding that these countries come in and protect their own territory because it is their territory. Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One on the way from Florida to Washington, it's the place from which they get their energy. It's their territory, the Strait of Hormuz, according to Trump.
Whose territory?
Everybody's. The countries, the world's.
The world's, right.
The US allies' country.
Yeah.
It's their territory.
Including China. He's asked China to help as well. He did.
Yeah, I know. I started a war and now I need help controlling. Not a war. Sorry. I started a thing.
Defense.
Yeah.
You didn't start it, I read. Israel started it.
Oh, Israel started it without any involvement from the US.
No.
Their big, beautiful bombs, Patriot missiles, wasn't theirs. The one that hit the school wasn't theirs.
No.
Tomahawk. Oh, right. A prolonged conflict could also cause a fertilizer shock, risking global food security. About 33% of the world's fertilizers, including sulfur and ammonia, pass through the strait, according to analytics firm Kepler. Iran's conventional navy has largely been destroyed, but the guards still have plenty of options, including fast attack craft, mini submarines, mines, and even jet skis packed with explosives, said Tom Sharp, a retired Royal Navy commander. Tehran has the capacity to produce around 10,000 drones a month, according to the Center for Information Resilience, a non-profit research group. Yemeni's Houthis, a group allied with Iran but with a far smaller military arsenal at their disposal, shut down most traffic passing through the Red Sea for more than 2 years, despite US and EU naval efforts. This is from a Reuters article I was reading last night. So anyway, fun and games, TK, in the global markets in the last week.
I think out of all of that, I think the most significant item I read was that the 4 oil majors sent their CEOs into the White House for a meeting yesterday. I think that was in the Wall Street Journal overnight. And, yeah, shit's getting real. I suspect that, a lot of countries have only got weeks' worth of oil supply left, and maybe that's not the case for mogas, but it's probably the case for fuel oil and diesel in particular. Um, and as you say, fertilizer inputs. So when that gets critical, I think the Straits of Hormuz will be opened. I won't say necessarily how, but I don't think it'll be left closed.
Are the oil majors making money out of this? Because when the oil price goes up, are they happy?
Yeah, but that's like saying you're taking tips when you're fiddling on the Titanic, because it's like you'll make it for 3 weeks, and when the oil runs out, you can't continue to make it. So no, they'll be wanting the Straits of Hormuz to open.
Did you have a look at that Reddit link I sent you? I'm an Australian wholesale fuel trader.
I did, yeah. I had a look at a couple of them. That probably will link from that one, but I mean, the interesting things are around what's happening with Japan and Korea, and they've got some of the big super refineries there, and so they're now withholding deliveries to keep them as stockpiles for their own use, if they can get the feedstock, which generally comes from the Middle East. So if they're probably the canaries in the coal mine. If they run out, we run out, because most of our stuff comes from overseas, from Singapore or those two. So it's getting very, very pointed at the moment, I think. It's if having lived through the 70s and the oil shocks and potential, I don't know if we ever got the fuel rationing. I think from memory we might have had odd and even number plate days when you can fill up. That seems to jog a memory as I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, there are already some of those countries I just mentioned in Asia are already telling people to work from home and don't use their cars, and taking efforts to try and stop petrol from being used. But if that starts to spread to the US, which is probably the least likely place for it to spread, because they've got shale oil they can stop exporting and keep onshore. But we've got nothing. About 8%, I think, of our oil is provided locally. We're a better place for gas. We've got heaps of gas, although it's all going offshore and we're paying no royalties for it, or getting no royalties from it. And we have to, I mean, you could change an act of parliament to get it diverted back to Australia. So I think gas will be okay. But we're stuffed for fuel after, and potentially within the next month. I don't want
So
to
all
paint
these,
a bad picture, but it's all building up to something happening. Either Trump chickens out and the Straits of Hormuz open, which is entirely possible, or the war escalates dramatically and Iran backs down, is my take.
all these employers and government departments that have been trying to shut down work from home since we came out of COVID are going to be
Yeah.
getting back on board with it again. This
Yeah.
this guy on Reddit, I mean, I don't know how this mapped to your experience in the fuel industry, but it was interesting from my perspective. He says Australian fuel is 90% imported these days, mainly from Asia. The Asia refiners are more competitive and have economies of scale that compete with Australian refineries. That's why most of ours have closed. Australia, for over a decade, has not met the internationally agreed 90-day buffer of fuel reserves in the country. We sit at roughly 32 days of stock. This is the fault of both Labor and Liberal governments in the past. Note, it's easy to store crude oil, but much more difficult to store refined products like diesel and petrol. They're flammable and go off after a few months of sitting in a tank. It's very expensive to build brand new storage tanks, which is why no commercial person is doing it. That's why we import so much oil throughput. Not all crude oils are the same. The Asian refineries are set up to refine medium sour crude. Far more experienced chemical engineers or Google can give you more info. This is mainly produced by the Middle East. It's very hard to replace this crude oil into the refineries at short notice. So it doesn't matter how many barrels the US releases from its crude stockpiles, as that is a light sweet crude and is prohibitively expensive on the ocean flight component. Asian refiners have been cancelling contracts, and governments like Thailand and China are banning diesel and petrol exports. to keep these critical fuels in their own countries. Therefore, it's gotten very expensive to source alternative cargoes to supply Australia. The best analysis I am reading is as soon as the Middle East waterway, Strait of Hormuz, opens up, it will still be 1.5 to 2 months before the Asian refineries are running at full capacity again. Note, you can't just shut down a refinery. These things are designed to run 24/7. Shutting down completely puts equipment at serious risk of damage. Therefore, refiners are choosing to run at, say, 50% capacity to delay running out of crude oil feedstock and not damage refinery equipment. Anywho, conclusion is this situation isn't resolving itself anytime soon, unfortunately. There is a saying in commodity trading: high prices cure high prices and low prices cure low prices. When the price skyrockets, demand drops off where possible or supply is increased. When there's super low prices, supply reduces as said suppliers can't stay in business selling at those low prices. In this current high prices situation, supply can't increase right now, so the only lever is to reduce demand. If the price is kept low by governments, demand would stay around. You would have no more supply coming in Australia and you'd eventually run out of fuel. Neither's a good situation, but running out of fuel entirely is probably worse than having some fuel at a high price, which theoretically destroys some flexible demand. Have you been following what's going on in Cuba?
But only from the point of view of Donald Trump saying he's going to annex them.
Well, he's cut off all the fuel supply to Cuba.
Okay, I didn't know
Cuba,
that.
for the last year or two, has been getting most of their fuel from Venezuela. When he took over Venezuela, he cancelled all of the fuel exports to Cuba, and Cuba's, hospitals are shutting down. All their pharmaceuticals are going bad because they don't have refrigeration, because they don't have fuel. Cuba is a country that runs mostly on petrol still, hasn't been electrified. They don't have alternative sources of energy and all that kind of stuff. So he's trying to cripple the country completely by cutting off its fuel. Russia has tried to send some to them, and I think their ships got stopped as well. So it's just ironic that, he's been doing it deliberately to crash Cuba's economy.
Yeah, right.
And now we're all staring down the barrel of what happens when a country can't get access to fuel through one of his other not very well thought through adventures.
I mean, it's kind of a scary time in one respect, but it's also playing into a higher cost world because it's this theme I was talking about before on prior shows that the world's decoupling. I mean, it was back when everything had international supply chains that moved without friction. You could go to just-in-time supply, and you could be a government that said, "I'm going to hold 3 or 4 weeks worth of oil reserves," because that's fine because you'll get plenty of tankers in from Singapore in that time to replace it. But now, if the Singapore refineries or the Asian refineries can't get the type of oil they need, which only comes from the Middle East, everything just gums up. Which means that to prevent that, once we get through this crisis, governments are going to take steps to stop it from happening again, which means building up stocks locally. They're going to find other ways of getting oil from the Middle East. There'll be all sorts of things put in place to mitigate the risk, which will increase the supply chain costs and put the storage bulkheads, storage components, storage capacities into supply chains which aren't there at the moment, which will add to costs. So we're moving into a high cost world.
What have we done since COVID to make sure that doesn't happen again? Another pandemic that shuts everything down. What investments have we made?
All right, we put RFK on the job. So. Yeah.
Well, talking about things going down, my super portfolio has been killed. How's your portfolio going?
Well, actually, I kind of have deliberately not been looked at, but I looked at it today when you put your notes through, sent your notes through just to see it. Yes, so mine's down, still running at 18% this financial year, but it was up like double that until recently.
Yeah, mine too. Like if I go back to the 1st of December, I was at 31% versus the index at 13. Now I'm at 14 for the last 1 year versus 15 for the index. I've in the last week, even 19th of February, I was at 27% versus 20. It had started to catch up, but yeah, it's just crashed. Mostly CGF. Thanks a lot, CGF. It's down, and I had to sell something. When did I sell yesterday? I remember now. MAF. MAF crashed, and CGF crashed. Anyway, don't know. They're both financials, got nothing to do with oil directly, but some tie into the financial sector, I guess. The other thing that's crashed this week is the poll, the quiz of the week. Your brilliant idea. Put a quiz in. Everyone loves quizzes. No one. I think last week's quiz got one submission, and it was probably me. So not even
you won. You won the quiz.
Even you didn't do the quiz. Your idea to do a quiz, you don't even do the quiz.
Well, that's not fair if I do it, is it?
It's not?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm associated with you and you're running it.
Very short buy list for me this week, Tony. 4 stocks I had after I removed Josephine's and commodity sells and commodity Josephine's. Did you do one this week?
4 oil stocks. Yeah, I did. Similar. Yep.
Yeah. All oil stocks they were. Yeah, that's right. 4 oil stocks. Crazy time. Like 4 stocks. And I already own most of them in one portfolio or another. Oh, and one of them was being acquired too, I think. Might have been SDI or something like that.
Horizon's acquiring Q, I think, from memory.
Oh, Q, that's who it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was really 3.
Try and return the car safely, Jane. Q.
But I tell you what's killing it is the QAV Australia.
He's with dynamite.
Yeah, it's very Bondy, isn't it? Jet skis with dynamite.
That's an image, yeah.
Yeah. The QAV Stockopedia portfolio for Australia, which I haven't looked at for over a year, because
you set this up a year ago with whatever the buy list had at the time.
No, I set it up in March of 2025 when I had finished building the Stockopedia checklist.
Right.
And hold on, no, it goes back earlier than that. Sorry. It was July 2023 when I was building the Stockopedia checklist, and I wanted to build a portfolio straight from that and then compare the performance of that over a year with the performance of the Stock Doctor run portfolios and see how they compared, because it was spitting up slightly different buy lists and slightly different stocks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
So I ran it for a while and everything checked out and it was tracking along, doing about the same. And so I said, okay, that's good. And I just decided to ignore it, but I didn't shut it down and I left it there. Well, in the last year, it's gone up 38.8% versus the S&P 500, which is up 10%. And versus the dummy portfolio, let's see, the dummy portfolio in the last year is just come down. It was up 32%. It's just crashed down to 23 in the last couple of weeks. But the other one, the Stockopedia one, which I haven't touched, so no selling, completely ignoring it, gets back to Scott's or somebody's email from a few weeks ago. Absolutely crushing it.
So what are you suggesting?
Nothing. I just thought it was interesting because we did this. We went through this with Scott. I just thought I'd tell you the big winners. Visan, this is not just in the last year, this is since I bought it all time, is up 364%. Shape Australia up 280%. Southern Cross Electrical up 226%. McMahon Holdings up 130. SSM Service Stream up 120. Parenti up 100. Joyce up 88. The others are NAB, Viva Leisure, Amico Holdings, Boom Logistics, which is funny because it's only up 18%. NZM, Abacus, ABG, don't even know who they are. Diversified Real Estate Investment Trust, a REIT, because I didn't take REITs out of this. And Shine Justice. Well, Shine Justice is down 20%, to be fair, so that's the big loser. Abacus is down 3%, but they're the only two stocks that are down. Everything else is up and gangbusters. But of course, it's been a good year. And it's all happened since the middle of last year, which is when our portfolios all blew up as well. But so the lesson there is no lesson, but I just thought I went to shut it down because when I go to Stockopedia's news, it gives me news from all of the folios that I have, and the Australian news was having a bunch of stocks that I didn't care about. I just wanted to show me this news from the US stocks before we did the US show each week. So I went to delete this portfolio that I thought, it's probably time to get rid of it. And then went, oh my God, look at that. It's crushing it. But yes, I don't believe that's a good strategy. Just buy and hold forever.
No. Oh, maybe 12-month rebalancing years. I don't know. But yeah, there's certainly periods where buying and holding wins and certainly periods where it loses.
Well, I won't say who, but somebody we both know did tell me a couple of years ago that he was just going to buy Nick Scali and hold it forever. And then I had a look at Nick Scali the other day when we had an email from him, and it's not had a good year.
There was another stock that same person told me years ago he was going to buy and hold forever. I think it was Coronado.
Oh, didn't they go out of? They shut down, didn't they? They moved offshore. They went to the US or something.
Something. Anyway,
yeah,
wouldn't be a stock that I would have bought and held forever. Because it's a commodity stock for a start. So
yeah.
Coronado
Global Resources, CRN. Yeah, I think it delist. No, it's still going.
Yeah, it hasn't been on the buy list for a while though.
February 23, it was trading at $2. Now it's trading at 35 cents. So yeah, good luck with buy and hold forever that one.
Hopefully it's had like a 10-for-1 share split or something, but yeah, I don't think it has.
No.
Speaking of the risk, that's always the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, with the exception of perhaps Berkshire Hathaway and maybe a few other stocks, it's very hard to pick a stock which is going to still be around in 20 years, let alone giving you good returns along the way as well.
Yeah. Speaking of Scott, Scott's got a question about Perseus. He sent me an announcement yesterday. Perseus has shined. There should be no significant problem, Miss Moneypenny. Perseus has signed a share purchase agreement to sell its 70% group interest in the Myas Sand project located in Sudan to Hong Kong Matrix Golden Fortune Mining Limited. I was watching Jackie Chan's Police Story over the weekend, and that sounds like the production company. I think it was Golden something.
Sounds like a racehorse.
Yeah,
in Hong Kong.
A wholly owned subsidiary of Matrix Resources Co. Limited, together with the subsidiaries, the Matrix Group, for around $260 million. Purchase price comprises a $10 million deposit received on signing of the SPA and $250 million payable on completion of the transaction, which is to occur on the 26th of April. Proceeds will further strengthen Perseus' superior balance sheet along with consideration of additional capital returns to shareholders. Scott says, am I reading it right? They want to sell it to shareholders as possible special dividend. Well, it says in consideration of.
I didn't read it that way. They're selling an asset in Sudan. I read a bit about it, and so the interesting thing about Perseus, I think it's just changed CEO. So this sounds like the new CEO didn't like that project and is clearing it out, if I've got that right. But anyway,
right,
they're getting rid of it. They don't like the political atmosphere in Sudan. Think it's too risky for the returns they'll get from progressing, and they found a buyer. So it's not a bad outcome. But no, the way I read it was this Happy Matrix Good Fortune, Lucky
Golden Harvest.
Pegasus, Golden Harvest. Life's good. Company in Hong Kong is going to buy it for 260 million. They put a $10 million down payment. The rest comes through in a month or so. What do they do with the proceeds? That's when they might decide to use that to return to shareholders, which would be a fair outcome, I think, either as a buyback or a special dividend. One of the risks with companies like this is if they've got 250 sitting on the balance sheet, they'll be, burning their wallets to spend it. So, and which is fair enough, because if you've got a big asset sitting on your balance sheet, not using it, it reduces your metrics, your return on equity and return on capital, all that kind of stuff. So, I'm not averse to it being returned. I'm a shareholder in Perseus. It's been run really well over the years, and they've always had a good balance sheet. So they don't need the money. So I wouldn't be surprised if they give it back to shareholders in some form. But it's not being sold to shareholders. It's being bought by the Hong Kong company.
I think he meant they're selling what they're doing as a concept to the shareholders as a special dividend.
Yeah, right.
Like,
that's good.
The share price dropped. The share price of everything dropped this week, but the share price before this announcement at the end of last week was at $5.28. Announcement came out on the 16th. The share price dropped down to $5.10. It's at like $5.17 today. It's sort of hovered around there, but yeah, the whole market dropped.
Especially for gold.
Too. Yeah.
Like gold miners, the gold price has been coming back, which is kind of unusual because normally gold goes up when there's a instability in the market. But I think what my personal take is what's been driving the gold price for a long time is central banks hedging their risk against the falling US dollar. And I think the US dollar's now stopped falling for a while. So central banks aren't buying as much. But in Australia's case, the biggest risk is, of course, getting diesel to remote mining locations to power their mines and equipment. And so I think that's the risk that's being factored into these share prices now, which is crunching them a bit.
Right. All right. So that's that. That's all I got. What else you got to talk about, TK?
Well, continuing with the oil theme, the RBA meets today, and they have to weigh up whether this is a taco situation and it'll be all over in a few days, or whether this is the oil price being high, is going to continue for a while, and whether they should therefore raise interest rates. I'll go out on a limb, as I normally do every couple of months, and say the RBA will raise rates today. My thinking is that inflation was already ticking up over the last few months and outside their comfort zone. So regardless of what's happening with the oil price and how it feeds into food prices and all the rest, and creates an inflation spiral that leads to wage rises, etc., they'll try and nip it off in the bud. So that's my main argument. But I'm also reminded again of the 70s and 80s when the last significant oil shock came through. And the RBA will be acutely aware of the Burns versus Volcker arguments that went on in the US or in history. If I know about it, it's pretty high-level economic history. But in the 70s, a guy called Burns ran the Fed, and when the oil price started to rise,
Mr. Burns, was it Mr. Burns? Release the hounds.
Yeah. Yes, Smithers. So Burns kept blinking and didn't raise interest rates when the oil price started to raise, and his logic was reasonably sound. If inflation's being driven by oil prices, then the government should do something about oil prices, and that'll reduce inflation rather than interest rates being raised. But then after a couple of years of that, he lost his job to Paul Volcker, who came in and brought in 18% to 20% interest rates at the end of the 70s, and they flowed through the economy and certainly stopped inflation, but also stopped the economy. And we had the recession we had to have in the early 90s in Australia as a direct result of that. And I still recall, buying my first house in the late 80s and paying 15.5% interest on the mortgage and being congratulated for having such a good rate when it kept going up. So, yeah, it's the RBA won't want it to get to anywhere near those levels. And so I think they'll move today.
Right. So we'll find out in an hour or so.
Yeah. So that's door number one. Door number two is I came across an article in the Fin, which is headed Gen Z use unregulated AI for financial advice. And I just wanted to raise it because it was an interesting take on AI and its uses, and that someone did a survey and found out that a large number of young people were using AI for financial advice. And of course, to be given personal financial advice in Australia from an unlicensed provider is illegal. So I don't know how the government's going to tackle that or get the AIs to license themselves and be trained in the sort of crap I have to read to maintain, the detailed, thorough, conventional wisdom that I have to study to keep our license going. But interesting situation. And it's, part of a wider problem that since the government brought in tighter rules around providing financial advice, half the financial advisors have left the system. So there's not enough people to provide advice to everyone that's required. They're charging a lot more because of all the compliance that goes with it, and which means that most people, in terms of the number of people, the mass population can't afford to get financial advice, and so they're turning to online and AI. And so it makes sense, but it's turning out to be the Wild West of financial advice, and I don't know how it's going to be solved, but it's an interesting dilemma, I think.
You just get ChatGPT to sit the exam, it'll pass it in 12 seconds, and then it'll have a license, and that'll be it.
Well, how does it get a license?
Just
Who
sits
gets
the
the
exam.
license?
ChatGPT
ChatGPT.
does. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
OpenAI just gives ChatGPT the exam. It'll
So
pass
OpenAI
it.
get the license.
Yeah, sure.
So they're on the hook. So if anyone gets bad financial advice, ChatGPT, OpenAI will pay
No,
or reimburse.
it just says this is not personal financial advice every time it answers something. Like it tells me to go see a
Yeah.
doctor when I talk to it about my iron deficiency.
And then you argue with the other AI about the first AI's
I get all
result.
the AIs to argue amongst themselves. I don't argue with them. I just get them to argue amongst themselves.
Right. Yeah,
What
perhaps
is,
that's what Gen Z's doing for financial advice. I
you ever
don't know.
see Coffee Talk?
No.
Mike Myers on SNL did this recurring sketch and back in the day where he was this Jewish woman from like Brooklyn, and it was Coffee Talk. It was like a talk show. And he'd be like, talk amongst yourselves. They think that's what I say to them. Talk amongst yourselves. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, interesting article I thought
Yes.
about
Well,
financial
look,
advice. How it's
people are
evolving.
going to be using AI for financial advice, medical advice, relationship advice. They are. They will continue to. Some of it will be good. Some of it won't be good until we figure out how to fix the reliability issues with these things. But that's the big
fix the financial advice industry. Because as one person said in this article, if I'm not getting advice from AI, I'm getting it from my friends. That's probably even worse.
Yeah. Or from financial advisors, which is probably even worse. But the theory is that these things will get to a place where they are legitimately giving solid answers and not hallucinated answers. They have gotten a lot better in the last couple of years, but the thing that I've been asking for the last 6 months is whenever I see Sam or any of the leaders of the industry interviewed, and I watch a lot of they're interviewed constantly and I watch them all constantly. I never see anyone ask the question, how are you going to fix the reliability problem? They're always talking about how AI is going to take all these jobs. We go, but they're not until you fix the reliability problem. How are you going to do that? How are you going to fix, what's the plan? Yeah, the best that they will say is, oh, we're working on, we got some ideas along that. We're working on it. But until that's resolved, it's, I can't trust it.
No.
I mean, I do trust it to do a lot of stuff, but I know
Mundane
that
procedural stuff. Yeah.
no, writing a lot of code and building a lot of analysis and reports and that kind of stuff. But I'm doing it completely aware that I can't trust it 100%, right?
Go check it.
Not like I wouldn't trust a human 100% either if I hired a consultant. I treat it like a consultant. How
Mhm.
do I know that what you're telling me is true? Can you back it up? Can you verify it? Then I'll go give it to some other consultants and get them to verify it. And that's when I run it past Dave, as I say.
Who's Dave?
Told you about this. Double AI verification. I
Oh,
invented
right.
this.
Okay. Yeah.
Run it
Yeah.
past Dave. Get
Right.
all the AIs to
But
talk amongst themselves.
like if the problem is that an AI is unreliable, how does having the opinions of 5 AIs improve that situation?
Well, they're all trained and pre-trained slightly differently. So they're all trained on the same data set, right? More or less. I mean, Grok has access to Twitter and some of them have access to Reddit and different books and whatever. But let's assume they're all trained on pretty much the basis of all human knowledge, particularly that's in English literature. But their modeling is slightly different. Like their weightings of what they
Mm.
value are slightly different. So get them to try and pick up the flaws. It's like having a bunch of PhDs arguing amongst themselves. They all went to the same university, but they all have slightly different views on how things work, right? Hello. Oh, my green smoothie
And
wife. Thank you.
and they love to argue as well.
They do love to argue. Yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, that's gonna
Anyway.
it's gonna happen. But as you and I were talking about off air, like the way that people use AI for financial advice will be interesting
Well,
because
and look,
it will reflect the
sorry.
biases of the inputs they put in.
Yeah,
Like, you
correct.
know,
Yeah, if you ask an AI, "Tell me what you think about Bitcoin," it's gonna give you an answer about Bitcoin.
yeah,
Whereas if you ask it, "Give me financial advice," it may not mention Bitcoin. And look, there was certainly the interesting part about the article was it hasn't come out and said the advice was bad or the advice was wrong. It just said it was unlicensed. Now, AI could be giving
right,
just as good advice as a trained financial professional. We don't know.
yeah. The way that I use it, well, for my US pulled pork, right? The company that I'm doing today, which is a great story, by the way. Did you look into it yet?
I did, yeah.
Oh, I don't know how much into the detail you got, but it's some fascinating stuff going on with it at the moment. But I'll go into Gemini's deep research tool and I'll say, write me a deep research report on this company here, or, I have, basic
Yeah.
framework that I wanted to answer. It
Yep.
goes away and writes a deep research report. Then I'll read that, and it provides me with all the sources, so I can look at the primary sources and verify it. I'll read all of that, ask a bunch of questions. It'll answer all my questions, and then when I write all my notes based on that, I'll give all of that to two other AIs, Grok and ChatGPT or Claude, and say verify all of this, fact check it for me, and it'll come back and it'll quibble over minor points usually, but usually
Yeah.
they tend to agree. Although occasionally I've had one disagree with the other two, and sometimes that one turns out to be right. A couple of weeks ago, ChatGPT disagreed with Gemini and Claude. No, Gemini and Grok, and then they both conceded that ChatGPT was right eventually.
Gosh, I was watching Minority Report last night. This is like the precogs where two of them see the vision of the future and one of them disagrees
Right.
and files a Minority Report.
How did it hold up?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I've stayed up late to watch it, so it got me enthralled again. But I didn't like the Spielberg ending, but the rest of it was great.
I can't even remember.
Oh, well, it's I'm sure Philip K. Dick would not have liked the ending. It's about how we're all on a there's no free will. We're all on a continuum, and these people can see the forward into the continuum to know when a crime's going to be committed. But the Spielberg ending is that Tom Cruise says you can change your own future. You can make a choice. You have a choice. It's like bullshit. The whole fucking movie is about predetermination.
Oh, speaking of which, so have you, so Paul, anyone not interested in quantum mechanics, just pause or fast forward a couple of minutes. Have you heard about the 2018 MIT Bell theorem experiment?
Funnily enough, no.
Well, you say that, but I hadn't, and it's the kind of thing I feel like I should have heard about because I've kind of follow this thing. You know about quantum entanglement. You know about
Mhm.
so you know about Bell, John Bell, the American 20th century physicist. Is one of the. He was
The
one of
Bell
the.
Lab guy.
No,
Okay.
a different guy. He was one of the guys that argued for quantum entanglement, quantum mechanics against Einstein, and Einstein came up
Okay.
with the EPR theory, EPR theory to go against Bell. Anyway, quantum entanglement basically says that you can have two entangled subatomic particles
Mm-hmm.
at any distance from each other across the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you measure a property of one, the other will exhibit the exact same or the exact opposite property, depending on how they're entangled,
Instantaneous.
instantaneously,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And Einstein always said, not possible,
Mm-hmm.
information can't travel faster than the speed of light, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Bell came up with his theorem to explain that. They've done experiments over the last 50 years, which have verified it, but there's always been arguments with the experiments that the humans were deciding which metric to measure, and it was the human involvement in the decision making that was tainting the results. So what MIT did in 2018 is they had two telescopes both looking at a quasar that was, I think, 10 billion light years away. And then a pair of entangled particles were created in a lab that sat in the middle of these two telescopes, would shoot them out in opposite directions. And at the right point, these telescopes would look at this quasar, measure the frequency of the light that it was receiving at that particular point in time from the quasar, and depending on where it fit on the red blue spectrum, it would measure a particular aspect of these particles based on what specific color or frequency of the light was they were receiving from a light source that was 10 billion years old, to remove any human intervention as much as possible from the decision about which measurement to take on these two entangled particles. And they ran this tens of thousands of times, and it agreed that they all had the exact same measurement, with a very, very high level of probability every time. But it was so basically is proving that quantum entanglement,
Mm-hmm.
beyond shadow of a doubt, is real. So something's going on with the waveform at a field level where particles are communicating instantaneously across astronomical distances that makes no sense to Einsteinian relativity. Anyway, all right, you can back to investing now. I spent hours trying to get my head around this with Gemini
It's
over the
hard. Yeah.
weekend. Yeah. And also, there's something I don't quite understand yet, which is about the connection between the light leaving the quasar 10 billion years ago and its ability, well,
Yeah.
the function of that light deciding how this waveform decoheres when it's measured. So it's like almost the everything's happening at the same time 10 billion years ago and now, with the measurement process, which I haven't quite figured out how to pass into my brain yet. But anyway, I was at this camping trip, which we went to on the weekend, got washed out. But people sitting around campfires with people, and, my usual casual conversation when I sit down with people is like, tell me about the most interesting fact that you've learned recently, which
Oh,
always,
right.
yeah, Chrissy's always apologizing for my lack of social skills. And people always do the same thing. Oh, I can't think of anything. What about you? And I go, well, have you heard about the 2018 MIT quantum entanglement experiment that was done? They're like, no. I go, let me tell you. And Chrissy's like, oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry.
Yeah, I stopped doing that. I used to do that at dinner parties as well. Then people made fun of me, so I stopped. I remember talking about the singularity is near with a group of people from Alex's school, parents from Alex's school. Then, like, their only takeout was, "So you think you're going to live forever?"
Yeah. That's pretty much why I ended up podcasting because, in my Microsoft days, I'd try and have these conversations with people at
Mm.
Microsoft, and they'd all their eyes would roll up into the back of their head. And I was like, I need an audience. I need someone to talk to about this stuff.
Oh, it's interesting stuff. I agree.
All right. Well, you and I are probably the only two people who think so. Let's move on. Tony, what else you got?
Well, I saw in your weekly email about your camp being washed out that you took Fox somewhere and he said SSDD,
He says that every day when I drop him off
which
at
he,
school.
which you said he says means
Stay safe, don't die.
right. Whereas I've always thought it meant same shit, different day. So has there been a generational twisting of it, has there?
Well, he didn't say SSDD. He for the last year he would say stay safe, don't die. If I'm leaving somewhere in the car, or Chrissy is, or he's going to school, say stay safe, don't die is what he would say. I abbreviated it to just SSDD. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then at night time when he goes to sleep, it's also sweet dreams. So it's SSDDSD or just
Okay.
SSSDDD. Yeah. Stay safe,
Yeah.
don't die, sweet dreams. Yeah. But not same shit, different day. Is that
Mm.
how you feel about this show? Just same
No,
shit
no,
every day.
we haven't had Copenhagen's what's the Copenhagen theory of quantum entanglement before, or the Bell
Well,
theory, whatever.
I'm personally Everett many worlds theory on that rather
Okay.
than Copenhagen. But yeah,
Uh,
got a pulled
well, mini
pork.
worlds theory. I actually
Mm.
think the universe is a Monte Carlo simulation. All the multiverses are a Monte Carlo simulation. Someone's trying to run a matrix billions and billions of times to work something out.
Yeah, in a
Yeah.
computer, some sort of
Well, it could be.
advanced supercomputer. Mm.
Well, it'd be loosely defined as a computer. It'll be some kind of organic
Mm-hmm.
quantum computer.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. And the answer's 42 every time they run it. They run it
Which is
again.
what I probably keep rerunning it.
Yeah.
The answer is Donald Trump. They have to keep rerunning multiverses.
Douglas Adams is sitting somewhere just running it over and over again. It's out Donald Trump and he goes, "No, run it again."
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, pulled pork. And if you haven't enjoyed listening about quantum mechanics, you might enjoy this pulled pork, which is a company called BSP Financial. Code is BFL. They're not a buy at the moment on the buy list because there's only 4 oil stocks which are, but they have been one I've been meaning to do for a while because they're high up on the buy list. They're currently at Josephine. But having said that, they've been on the buy list for a while. Their share price has been in an uptrend for the last 4 or 5 years. And, I have to say, having dug into them, I really kind of like them. So I think it's worth doing when they do turn up again. They've been in a buy state for a long time. It's just that they've turned down with the market at the moment. They're also ex-dividend at the moment, which is another reason why they're a hold. But yeah, I think it's worth going through them, and you can park it until things turn around if you need to. BSP Financial Group is the largest bank in PNG, Papua New Guinea. They're a full service bank, including commercial banking, asset finance, life insurance, funds management, ATMs, the whole box and dice. They claim they go back to 1916 in terms of their origins in the Rabaul in Papua New Guinea. Other sources I've seen said they were founded in 1957, and that's when the National Bank of Australasia opened a branch in Port Moresby, which then grew through various iterations to become BSP. It incorporated in 1974 as the Bank of South Pacific, and then it also merged with a government-owned bank around that time, and which was around the time that PNG gained independence, which is now 50 years ago. And since then, they've expanded throughout the South Pacific, and they'd be probably the biggest bank in South Pacific. They're very big in Fiji, Solomon Islands, Samoa, Tonga, Cook Islands, etc. Vanuatu, Cambodia, Laos, not so big, but they're there. And in 2021, the company listed on the ASX, and that's when it changed its name to BSP Financial Group. What else can I say about them? A few other things happened in there their history. They acquired a bank in Fiji in 2006 called Habib Bank. They were listed in 2003 on the Port Moresby Stock Exchange, first of all. And they, as I said, they merged with the state-owned Papua New Guinea Banking Corporation. And that was part of a whole series of banking reforms led by Prime Minister at the time, Sumakira Uta. I hope I pronounced that right. And he did things like also beefed up the Reserve Bank. I think the state-owned bank was losing money, so they merged it with the commercial bank, and that became profitable almost straight away. So, yeah, probably a good outcome for them. They, in 2007, they acquired the National Bank of Solomon Islands. 2009, acquired the Colonial National Bank of Fiji and Colonial Fiji Life Insurance. And they continue to expand through the 2010s, probably most significantly in about 2015, when they bought Westpac's banking operations in several Pacific nations. That dramatically expanded their footprint and made it the largest financial institution in the South Pacific. Westpac decided to sell. I mean, their Pacific operation was quite tiny compared to the rest of Westpac. I think it was less than 1% of their probably their revenues. And BSP has made a better go of the economics of running those running banks in small countries. Westpac had brought a high cost structure, was employing Australians at Australian rates of pay to manage it, was using large bank IT, etc. So BSP Financial has done a better, BSP or BSP Financial, BFL, sorry, is the code. BSP Financial has done a better job of running it than a larger Australian bank. They also, Westpac was also having to go through lots of regulatory changes after the GFC, including extra capital requirements and bringing in an anti-money laundering infrastructure. PNG didn't have quite as stringent requirements on their local bank that Westpac had by the Australian government, so they benefited from that as well. They launched a life insurance business in 2021, and at the same time, they had a dual listing on the ASX. So, kind of a history coming out of a small part of PNG to dominate the South Pacific in terms of banking. And in the last results, anyway, it's paid off for them. So revenue was up 14.4%. Net profit after tax is up nearly 13%. Net interest margin was up 19 basis points, increasing to 6.41%, which is huge compared to Australian banks. Dividend per share was up 13%, and digital adoption rates were up 22%. And that's an important one. Even though BSP has a branch network in PNG and through the Pacific, it's, as you can imagine, in PNG quite costly to do that. And also too, they can't service all of the people in PNG. It's just not possible to put bank branches in the highlands and remote areas, etc. So last year they launched a thing called the Wontok Wallet, which was their digital bank, which made possible everyday operations for people, especially who would otherwise travel long distances to a branch or rely on cash. And the adoption of that offering, digital bank offering, is up 22% in a year. So they're doing well with that. In terms of market share, in PNG, from a lending point of view, they've got a 57.5% market share. And from a deposits point of view, they have 63.5%. And that's probably their highest share. But in other countries, they've still got very high shares. Lending market share in Tonga is 50%, Cook Islands 36%, and it declines through Solomon, Samoa, Fiji. Vanuatu is its lowest at 16%, but I imagine that's they've got some French bank competition there. I'm going to go through the QAV numbers first and then cover off on risks and positives, and maybe some of those will become clear once I'm doing the numbers. First thing to note is it's a small ADT stock, so it's only $29,000 trading per day, so it's not going to suit a lot of people. But there are a few reasons for that, because if you look at the numbers, it's actually quite compelling. It's just that for whatever reason, sovereign risk reason, for currency exchange reasons, I guess for the smallness of PNG type reasons, it's not getting the sort of institutional investment it should be getting, I believe. So I'm using a stock price of $8.10. IV1 is $5.44, which is obviously below $8.10, so we can't score it for that. There is no IV2 because there's no consensus target, so no brokerage coverage on this stock, or at least not enough to get consensus targets. Uh, Yields high, 6.43% at the moment, and it's almost greater than the PE ratio, which is 7.6. So we can't score it for that, but it's pretty close to a good value indicator, which is the yield being higher than the PE. PE of 7.6 times is in the middle of the 3-year range, so we can't score it for that. Stock Doctor Financial health and trend is strong and steady, but Stockopedia have a 64 quality ranking for this and a F score of 5 out of 9. Both are okay, but not as strong as Stock Doctor, and frankly, not as strong as I rate the stock. So I'm not sure what's marking it down in Stockopedia. It looked okay to me, but its ranking overall it has a ranking of 70 in Stockopedia, and it's bolstered by a value score of 91. ROE for this bank, which we don't use to score, but I just want to highlight it, is 23.78%. And a lot of the metrics I speak of now, I've actually compared to Commonwealth Bank, and CBA Bank has an ROE of 14% or just below 14%. So not quite double the CBA in terms of return on equity, but it's getting there. And that's pretty much the case across most of the metrics. They're nearly up to double of what the equivalent bank in Australia would be. CBA is the biggest here, and BSP is the biggest in New Guinea and the Pacific. So they're comparable from that sort of point of view, but the metrics are twice as profitable, or almost twice as profitable in BSP's case. Prop cap for this company is 1.85 times. So this is a large market share bank covering most of the Pacific or South Pacific, and it's trading at 1.85 times operating cash flow, which
Wow.
just boggles the mind. Net
Yeah.
equity per share is $4.71, so we can't buy it for book or book plus 30, which is $6.13. The original founders are no longer involved in the company's operations. And interestingly enough, the directors don't hold much at all of this stock, which surprised me because I think it stacks up on a lot of different metrics. Not a new 3-point trend line upturn, so we can't buy it for that. It does have consistently increasing equity, which I rate pretty highly. Overall, we get 8 out of 11 or 73% for quality, but a QAV score of 0.39, given that prop CAF metric. So it scores pretty highly on our buy list. I guess, why isn't it being bought? Plenty of risk. I guess, you sort of accept conventional wisdom. It's dependent on the PNG economy, and that economy, I guess its biggest industry would be mining, and so it's got a commodity-based economy, but so is Australia. So I'm not going to rule it out for that. It does have a complex regulatory environment because it operates across a number of jurisdictions, but it doesn't seem to have held it back, and it's doing a better job, I think, than when it was that sort of similar footprint was being operated by other big Australian banks. So I'm going to, even though it's listed as a reason why you think this would be a risk to own, I don't think it is. Currency fluctuations is probably a big risk. So the PNG currency, for those who don't know, is the Kina, K-I-N-A, and the conversion rate can fluctuate, as often is the case in small countries. So that can be a problem if you're an investor and being paid dividends, for example, and trying to repatriate those at a sort of same high level that you're getting on paper anyway. People list sovereign risk with PNG, but I'm not sure if that's the case. It's reasonably stable. And likewise, the Pacific can have sovereign risk, and notably, I guess, the Q and Fiji, which has happened a couple of times, but it's still been fairly stable even after the military took over. So again, I'm not sure if sovereign risk is a big risk here. It's a risk. And I guess the last risk is that someone comes in and sees these healthy margins and wants to compete, but the big players in the Australian market anyway left because their cost structures were too high. So I'm not sure how realistic that threat is. Although it's got to be a risk, especially if digital take up gets bigger in the Pacific, then maybe a digital disruptor can come in and they face risk. But that's the same with any bank, really. So the sort of list of risks that you get if you look at Stock Doctor or think about the company or do some Googling, are there, but are they high? I don't think so. Um, Look, the more I delve into this, the more I like this stock. It's a high net interest margin bank, but it trades on a low multiple. So that's got to appeal to value investors. Um, and if I look at some of the reasons, so to sort of take them apart, this bank gets lumped in with what's called frontier countries or frontier market banks. So um, Google told me that big banks like Australian major banks typically trade on a PE of between 14 and 18 times, and Combank has gone outside that on the high side recently, but traditionally it's sort of around that 15, 16 times. Southeast Asian banks trade a bit less than that because they're sometimes seen as emerging, but they're still trading at around 12 times. And frontier market banks, and they lump places like PNG and Africa in that sort of category, trade on sort of 6 or 7 times a typical PE. So, okay, that's how analysts see it, but really it's got dominant market share across the South Pacific. So is it really a frontier market bank? I'm not quite sure. It should probably be trading at least on the Asian banks multiples or slightly below them. The currency risk is a high one. The Kina does float around a bit. And often there are problems getting US dollars into PNG to convert anyway. So that can be a problem if you're a US institution. And multinationals sometimes wait months for US dollar conversions. But, again, if you're investing, it's only really the dividends you're repatriating. So I'm not sure if that's that's going to be a problem. It's an illiquid stock on the ASX, but that's kind of because of all these risks that are perceived that I'm saying. But I don't think they're really there. So it shouldn't be an illiquid stock. It should have a larger trading base, I would have thought. As I said before, the PNG economy gets concentrated in certain areas. For a while, it was concentrated around some of the BHP mines. It's now got some major projects going on in LNG and some new copper mines. So it is a commodity-based market, and it can be single project-based dominant. So it can move around in terms of the PNG earnings overall, which will affect banking. But again, it's still sort of operating in the same space that Australia does as well, the same sort of risk, but I guess they're more concentrated than PNG. But you're buying something with a high ROE, a high dividend yield, and a dominant market share for a low cost. So there's a lot to mitigate those risks away. And as I've often said, buying something on a price to operating cash flow less than 2 times is going to cover a lot of risks and insure against a lot of risks. So I do like this. The last thing I did want to talk about is what's happening in PNG. And I haven't specifically followed what's happening in PNG, but there has been a couple of major news items. And the big news is that the Australian government last year signed a $600 million 10-year deal with the PNG government to invest in the country, and specifically to bring an NRL team to Port Moresby in 2028 called the PNG Chiefs. And even though that was funded by the federal government to fund the sporting team, it's been seen as a way of blocking Chinese influence and investment in PNG. So over the next 10 years, there's going to be $600 million moolah floating around PNG, plus whatever they generate from people traveling. to Port Moresby to live and play in the team and the infrastructure and families around, plus people who go and watch the games. So there's going to be a bit of a bump to tourism and potentially, if it all runs smoothly, a bit more of an acceptance of PNG as a place with less sovereign risk than it's being rated at the moment. So who knows how that will go? You know, they've got to attract people to come and play in PNG. I know they're getting tax incentives, and it's been reported in some places that players and staff won't pay any tax in PNG. And it's also being reported that they'll be living in compounds. So, but they're being marketed as sort of 5-star resorts. We'll see how it goes, but it's quite possible that something from that kind of dimension is big enough to impact the economy and certainly put some money through the dominant bank. And that might help to re-rate it in the future. I don't know, but I just thought it was interesting to explore it a little bit. So, yeah, look, I can't really say much more about it. I like them. It's a high margin bank. It's operating in a dominant market share. It's probably one of the most profitable banking franchises in the Asia Pacific region, but it's being valued like a risky sovereign risk sort of, Sudanese or West African operator, and I don't think that's justifiable in this case. So I liked it when I had a look at it. The numbers are compelling. I think the story is compelling, and if there is some positive shine on PNG as the cameras get put on sporting fixtures up there and people live there and come back and say they had a great time and it's a wonderful place, and that might actually start to re-rate investments in PNG. So have a look at BSP Financial. I quite like them.
I added them to a light portfolio back in April 2024, nearly 2 years ago. They're up about
And
37% since then.
and that's with the pullback recently.
Yeah, not shooting the lights out, but up is better than not up.
Yeah, well, I had a look at their 5-year graph, and I think they've doubled over the 5 years without including dividends, and it's on an 8% yield. So,
Right.
You're probably making 20% CAGR if you had owned the stock over the last 5 years. So it's pretty good.
I've sold it 4 times. Outside of the one time when I didn't have to sell it. But yeah, I bought it back in August of 2023 around 540 to 560. What is it now? BFL.
Eight something, 820, I think it was.
810. Yeah,
Yeah.
810 today. And then I bought it in February 24 at 646. I had to 3PTL sell it the first time around, and then I had to Rule 1 sell it last year. And then I bought it again, 5th time lucky, and now it's up 40%. So it may have paid back all the times I had to sell it. We'll see how it goes. Good luck to PNG's BFL.
And to the
Well,
PNG Chiefs when they join the
yes.
NRL. Yeah. So if you don't
Yeah.
like listening to QAV for quantum mechanics, then get your NRL news here.
Well, that brings us to after hours. Thank you, Tony, for that. What have you got for me this week, Tony?
Yeah, so a book called The Bed of Procrustes by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Do you know the story of the Bed of Procrustes?
I didn't until I got your notes and I read up on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Procrustes, it's a Greek story, probably a myth, but he owned an inn that would take in travelers, and then he'd give them a bed for the night, but he would make the traveler fit the bed. So if the traveler was shorter than the bed, he would stretch them, and if the traveler was too long for the bed, he would lop their legs off or their feet off. So not a very nice person. And eventually he was slayed by Theseus, who slayed the Minotaur, and he turned the bed on Procrustes and put him in the bed and then chopped off his head for being too long. So the book is a whole series of aphorisms, kind of stories around this is an example, and it was pretty good. It's pretty good. So it's a bit like that book you referred to me ages ago from the guy who wrote Homo Sapiens, where It's a compendium of sort of 2 or 3-lined aphorisms. So I've got some examples here. I'll just read out a couple. And this is how the book is. It's just laid out, sort of 4 or 5 to a page, page after page. But here's some examples. In science, you need to understand the world. In business, you need others to misunderstand it. Using as an excuse others' failure of common sense is itself a failure of common sense. And the last one I'll read out. France took Algeria hoping for a country to eat cassoulet, and instead France is eating couscous.
Yeah, very good.
But
I
they're all
downloaded the book.
quite quirky.
I like
Oh, okay.
Talib. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to crack in it when I finish the Odessa file, maybe.
Mm. I like Talib as well. There's a sort of cadre of authors who I just automatically buy the next book that they put out, and he's one of those.
But this is an old one, right? 2010, I think this came out.
Oh, okay. I must have just come across it recently then, because, I've just bought it.
What else? Anything else?
No, that's it. Like I said, I've rewatched some movies like Minority Report. Nothing really worth reporting. A lot of B-grade stuff this week, which has been fun, but hardly worth recommending.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, have you seen the Mel Brooks doco?
No.
I think it's on maybe Disney. It's called The 99-Year-Old Man. Just came out.
Right.
Directed by Judd Apatow.
Okay.
And it's just interviews with Mel today, telling his story, and a whole bunch of people, fans like contemporary comedians, Dave Chappelle, Seinfeld, Sarah Silverman, people like that. But also lots of archival interviews of him from over the decades, plus Carl Reiner and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
It has David Lynch's last filmed interview in it.
Oh, wow.
Talking about Elephant Man. And lots of interviews with Rob Reiner in it too, which I assume are possibly some of his last interviews.
Mm.
But it's great. Like, I assume you're a Mel Brooks fan. I mean, I know you're a Python fan. I don't know if we've talked about Mel Brooks much, but you, like me, must have grown up watching Mel Brooks films.
Oh, yeah. Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles. Yeah.
And Get Smart.
Oh, yeah. Get Smart. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I didn't realize until I watched this is that his career was in the toilet before Get Smart. I thought he was like successful when he did Get Smart with Buck Henry, but the story is that he was working on the Sid Caesar show for quite a few years and kind of either quit or got fired from that because he wanted to make movies. And I think, Sid signed up for another series and Mel didn't want to do more TV, and whatever reason he left, and then was broke, couldn't get, arrested in Hollywood, and career was going nowhere. And then somebody approached him, I think a producer approached him with the idea of doing this TV show to make fun of James Bondy type stuff. And he did Get Smart, right. And that launched him. So then he made The Producers, was a flop. Then he made the 12 Chairs. It was a flop.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, great film based on a Russian novel. And again, he was a complete failure by the early 70s. And then a producer approached him and said, I've got a young screenwriter's given me a screenplay called Black Bart, and I want you to direct it. Mel says, I only direct my own work, things I write myself. The guy says, I can pay you. When do we start? And that was Blazing Saddles, and he brought in Richard Pryor, and then the whole story behind that. And he figured no one is ever going to see it because it's a Western. No one's ever going to watch a Western. No one made a Western for 35 years. No one's going to watch this. So he was getting paid. He didn't care. He didn't have a percentage in it. So he just went balls to the wall. He said somebody told him, if you're going to approach the bell, ring it.
Yeah, right.
So they just went, every joke they could think of, they just put it in there. And of course, it was hugely successful. And then he's had other flops, but I didn't realize, apart from Elephant Man, like when he started Brooks Films, because He wanted to make serious films, but he says, if I directed Elephant Man, people expect it to be a comedy musical.
Yeah.
He also did The Fly. I didn't realize that
No,
he
I didn't know
made
that.
the Jeff Goldblum version of The Fly, which is one of my favorite films. I just rewatched that in the last year. Loved it. So yeah, what a life, what a career, and what a
Mm.
legacy, and a lot
So
of
married to Anne Bancroft too, which is I always found surprising.
you weren't the only one. Everyone, they
Yeah.
have interviews with people going. Everyone at the time was like, he said there was they'd only been together for a short while, and they were at some event, and there was some famous guy, I can't remember who it was, big Hollywood dude, who looked at her, looked at him, looked at her, looked at him, and said, "I don't get it." But the story between them getting together is fascinating too. She was in a play. Like, she won an Academy Award in like 62, and then she was in The Graduate, and
Mm.
she was a big Broadway star. Some friend of his dragged him along to see this thing. She performed a number on stage. She finished. He stood up, apparently, in the audience and yelled out, "And Bancroft, my name is Mel Brooks."
He rang the bell.
Yeah. And then he stalked her for the next 5 days. She says everywhere she went, he was there. And he was like, "We meet again. This is kismet. It's meant to be." She also says that the first time she saw him, she knew she was going to marry him just
Oh.
instantly. And then they were together for, I don't know, 45 years or something like that. Then she dies, and then he ends up going to Carl Reiner's house every night for dinner. You ever seen that Comedians in Cars Getting
Yeah.
Coffee episode?
Yep. I
So,
love it.
so Jerry is in this thing talking
Mm.
about that, and he says, great. He says, yeah, look, it was probably pretty intrusive, but he said, now America gets to see when you've achieved everything there is to achieve, where do you finish your life?
Mm.
Sitting in front of Wheel of Jeopardy,
With a
eating
TV dinner. Yeah.
with a TV dinner, eating deli sandwiches. Like that's
Yeah.
what.
Which I thought was fantastic. That was a great setting for them. Very realistic.
So Rob Reiner then says, when Carl died, Mel was there. Carl went to the bathroom and collapsed. Mel called the whatever you call it, the
911.
yeah, I think it was like a retirement village place,
Oh,
so he had a house,
yep.
but he called medical support, kept begging them to keep the machine on him, hoping they could bring him back around. Didn't. He said that Mel turned up at the house every night for months to continue the ritual of eating. He wasn't prepared to let his friend go for months. And he said to them, look, I know you're going to have to sell the place eventually. Just tell me when I can't come anymore. And Rob Reiner says, he said, well, maybe we'll sell it with you in it. Buy the house, get Mel Brooks for free. But yeah, like and then, Carl's dead, Rob's dead, Gene Wilder's dead. He's outlived everyone. But yeah, it's really, and it talks about, then he goes and does the producers on Broadway, reinvents Broadway. Nathan, not Nathan Lane, but Nathan Lane's in it too, but Josh Gad is in it because he's producing Spaceballs 2, which they're making at the moment. But he says that, like, the Book of Mormon wouldn't exist without the producers on Broadway, because the producers on Broadway reinvented Broadway. All of a sudden, you could do stupid slapstick, zany comedy on Broadway, which opened the door for movies being remade into musicals.
Right.
But also, which hadn't been done before, or hadn't been done for a long time anyway, since maybe the 60s. And also really zany stuff, and brought a whole new generation of people back to musical theater and Broadway. So anyway, and it's still, I think the producers, he says in this, it still has more Tony Awards than any other production, including Hamilton. It got 11 Tony Awards or something. So yeah, what a life.
I remember going to see it when it was revived in Australia with Bert Newton playing the Nathan Lane part.
Was he good?
It's great. Really good.
I saw him maybe I saw that too. I just remember him doing Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah. That's
But
it.
that's not. But that's
Oh,
not
no, it
Nathan
must have been the
Lane's
Nathan Lane
character.
part. No, he was the,
No,
no, you're right. He
he's
was
the
the German, yeah.
guy doing Hitler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Judd Apatow asks him when they made the film in '67. He goes, "Was anyone else making jokes about Hitler?" And he goes, "No, no one. No,
Mm.
it was." He said, Dave Chappelle talking about Blazing Saddles is like, people say you couldn't make that movie today. You couldn't make it back then either. Like, there
Yeah.
was never a time when you could make fun of
Well,
racism the way that
yeah.
he did in
Would
that.
have
It
been
was,
worse back then, I think.
and Mel Brooks says the only reason he could get away with it is because Richard Pryor was his writer and was supposed to play the role.
Mm.
So anyway, yeah, really, if you like Mel Brooks, really, I loved
Okay.
this
I'll have
documentary.
a look.
Really good. My musical suggestion for this week is Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross.
Okay.
Do you know what vocalese is?
No.
You probably do, but like me, you probably don't know by that name. So you know what scat is?
Yeah.
Scat is when they put English lyrics over the jazz part. Yeah. So they take a jazz standard, but instead of
Mhm.
scatting the trumpet line, they put words over the trumpet line. So anyway, Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross were the pinnacle vocalese trio in the '60s. I've just been
Right.
listening to them. They did like 4 or 5 albums. Been listening to that while I work over the last couple of days. It's really, it's a really cool sort of
Okay.
'60s jazz background vibe. This vocal trio singing over the top of jazz standards. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. That's it. That's what I got.
No, good. Oh, it's
Yeah,
been
and I
fun.
got washed out. You heard my camping story. We got washed out, came home,
But
had to drive through a bloody dirt track through the forest, which was hairy. No reception, no sat nav. A guy that came in the morning that we left, I took photos. He had a map on his phone still. I was
yeah.
taking screen photos of his map to guide myself through these forest tracks. Thought if we
Mhm.
break down or hit a
Mhm.
ditch and do an axle or
Yep.
something, 10 o'clock at night, no mobile phone reception. It's going to be fun.
So what happened? You lasted a night, did you?
So we got there on Friday afternoon. It was raining. We set up the tent
Right.
in the rain. We'd borrowed
Mm.
this tent the day before, didn't know how to put it up, spent 90 minutes trying to get this tent up in the rain. It poured rain all night. We found out the next morning all the roads in were flooded because the dam had released a whole bunch of water. So, like in Bundaberg,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was flooded last week, all the roads were flooded. The only way in or out was a dirt road through the forest, which was hairy. And then the forecast was it was going to rain all night on Saturday night, but it had been sunny all day and it was dry. So about 6 o'clock, Chrissy and I made the call. Let's just get out of here. I don't, and it was going to be raining the next day. We didn't want to have to pack up in the rain, and it was.
Yep.
So we packed up, left about 8, tried the main road out. Yeah, it was flooded. Chrissy walked out into the bridge over the river and went up to her knees, and she didn't even
Mm.
get to the road section. It was up to her knees, and we're like, yeah, this is bad. So we turned around and hit the dirt track and just sort of, it was only about half an hour through the forest road and got home by 10:30. It was fine. Turns out it didn't rain and everyone the next day just left on the main road. But, we made a call
Yeah.
for our sanity. I thought, if it rains, I'm just going to be lying here worried all night about, shit, we got to
Mm.
pack this thing up and painting us. But Fox, we turned up in the rain on the Friday afternoon. One of Fox's friends, because it was a school thing, one of his best
Oh, okay.
friends comes running up to the car in the rain. Fox just jumps out, takes off in the rain. We don't see him for the next couple of hours. He'd pop up to the tent every now and again and go, dinner ready? No. All right. He'd be off again. We were talking about this. So beautiful camping ground, only families from his school there. They sort of booked the thing out. There's like 30 families or whatever. So the kids, we didn't see the kids for the whole day, Friday night and Saturday. It was like living in the '70s. The kids are just running
Mm.
around on
Yeah, right.
scooters,
Yep.
skateboards, bikes, going to creeks in the bush. Just, it was like growing up, we did, right? You just don't see the kid
Yeah,
for the day. The kid's just off playing with his friends. It was great. It was something he can't
that's
do
fantastic.
in
Yeah,
suburban Brisbane.
you should be
You
able
just
to.
if he doesn't even have any friends that live within
Mm.
20-minute walk from here, but it was just I don't know. I wish it was like it was in many ways, that whole thing. Because you know what it was like. I'd disappear
Mm.
Saturday, 7 o'clock Saturday morning. I'd be on my bike and I wouldn't come home until dark. My parents had no idea where I was. We
Yep.
all were the same growing up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. School holidays was like that.
Yeah,
Every afternoon was like that.
yeah,
Go out until the street lights came on, ride your bike, go
yeah,
down and play football on the footy oval. Yep.
yeah. Go,
Yep.
try and get into
Skateboards.
trouble, exploring
Oh,
drains and
oh,
going
number of times
abandoned
I get
car parks and
called, like, Dad would get home and then the neighbour would come over and say, the kids have done this. And like, Dad would go, what have you
yeah.
done? Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
Wasn't me. He did it. Yeah.
And that whole thing of there was a hill, this place, main road leading up to a dam. Fox and his friend were on scooters, no helmets, no shoes, going up to the top of this hill and then banging it down this thing as
Yeah.
fast as they possibly
It's like
could.
the 70s. We never had any helmets or shoes either.
Exactly. And I was talking to Chrissy about, that ability to evaluate personal risk
Yeah.
in a physical sense only comes from trial and error, right? You have to fall down and hurt yourself a bunch of times to get a sense for, okay, maybe that was pushing it too far. Maybe I should think about
Yeah.
things before I
But
do them.
also watching your dumb mate do it first and go, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Ah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
like, because they're like 3 years older than you and they can do it and you can't, but you're not going to give up.
yeah. And
Yeah.
Fox's school is based on this principle too. The kids need to take a lot of risks because that's how
Mm.
they learn to um, evaluate risks. But then kids get hurt. A lot of arms get broken and concussions happen, and parents get upset. And I'm like, that's kind of what you signed up for when you sent them to this
Yeah.
school, right? It's part of the philosophy of the school is they let kids use knives and power tools and, glass objects and heavy objects and build forts up trees. That's kind of the point, right? Is
Mm.
it's like Lord of the Flies in a somewhat loosely managed environment. But anyway, all right, let's go talk
Okay. Yep.
Trumpville, Trump land, the land of no
Milk and honey.
consequences.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you, TK. Have a good week, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.